is Dr. Patricia Jo Grover, the Goal Achievement Strategist. And I have here with me Baron, Sir Dr. James Dentley, and he's coming to us today in the occupational dimension of life. So let me have him tell you a little bit about himself, because I want you to understand what it is when I say Baron James.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be on your show. Had the opportunity to watch you create a lot of amazing content, and I would honestly say that you might be just as good as Chat GPT. You just have could create a lot of content and a lot of information. So I'm really honored to be here. And a little bit about myself. Wow. Well, first of all, when you say Baron, I was actually knighted by the Royal House of Cappadocia with Prince Raphael, who is a blood descendant of Constantine the Great. So he's an actual Royal Highness, and he has a legal authority to bestow titles of nobility. So being knighted and then being then elevated to Grand Cross Knight, and then the Grand Prior of Illinois, and now a Baron of St. James of Cappadocia. So it's really an organization that started at 312 AD. And our focus is to help men and women just become better, try to make a difference in the world to help make the world better. In a nutshell, that's that part of it. What else do you want?
Well, so as my show, because we know we have my show, the TV show, the Rise Above show, and which you're a guest on today. But my show is with you on limitlesstv.net. So you have that, and also inspiredtospeak.com. So tell us a little bit about each of those programs.
Wow. Well, I've been training speakers for 30 years, since 1994. So over 30 years now. Started one-on-one, and about 17 years ago, we launched the programs to start teaching it as a course, as a class. And, the interesting thing is, Dr. Grover, is that the industry is always moving. It's a moving target, but everything is today. Because of technology, more and more people are finding their voice. It used to be a time where you can learn how to speak and get hired to speak, and then you find somebody else and they hire you to speak. And as more and more people start doing it, and corporations then start cutting back, when back in 2008 and then again in 2022, I started cutting back, it became a little bit more challenging. I would say somewhere about 15 to 18 years ago, it became very popular for individuals to create programs and products and to really sell them from the stage, because then they can control their own destiny. They made more money, but more importantly, the person that enrolled in that program can have the opportunity to work with an expert a lot closer, versus then just getting inspired and being motivated and walking away and then going right back down. We always say that artificial highs have real valleys. So it's always a moving target. And even now, with so much content through technology and chat, it's so easy for people to get out there and do it. So it really comes down to really being able to make that connection. And community is the word of today. So in the speaking arena, I've been doing it for many years, teaching people, training people. And like anything, a lot of people have had great success, but some haven't, but that's the same in football and in the choir and the band. Everybody doesn't make it there. It doesn't mean they don't get good later or they don't get other opportunities. Now, we launched the streaming network, originally called JD3 TV, because during COVID, speakers had nowhere to speak. And, in my life, we've been very blessed to have built a residual income in another outside business. I've always diversified, because when I looked around, all of the speakers that I knew, even the ones that are extremely famous, my goodness, Dr. Grover, they weren't prepared not to work for a year. They were not ready for that. So I looked at all the people I trained and I said, well, why don't we try something new? And innovation, that means you're doing something that you haven't done before. And I had this idea to start a streaming television network. Now, people 10 years ago wanted me to do it, had no interest on being on television. I thought I had a face for radio. I didn't want to be on there. So, but I did it to solve a problem and fill a need for people I cared about, and just try something new. I realized that, number one, that YouTube is a very successful platform, a $3 trillion company, but no one on there got their data. And I was wondering, how did they get to a $3 trillion valuation? There was a time we never heard of somebody making a worth $1 trillion ever. It's only happened to three companies right now, maybe four. So how did they do that? And they did that because they can pay out very little, and so many people will give them their content, because we have these creative people out here that are creating great content, things that impact, inspire, entertain as well. But if they don't have the data, the other company who has it builds the wealth. And some people can make a little money, but then we have people that start getting hacked and they were losing it. But no
And then
slight
the
against
ads,
them.
right? The ads that they sell.
Yeah, and the ads that they sell, yeah, they get the ads, but if they get hacked and somebody gets in that account's shut down and everything goes away. And it doesn't happen to a lot of people, but it does happen. So I was looking for pain points there and said, well, what if we can create something where we can solve that? And we have servers, two physical locations and two clouds. So if anything was ever happened in the 4 years, it hasn't. We can go back up within the next 30 minutes. We're back. We have this stuff. So we looked at that. The other side of it, we looked at the industry of streaming, and more things are coming through that phone now than ever before. In the future, you'll be able to look at a glass window pane, and that will be everything for you. Your phone, your TV, everything will run as technology continues to evolve and become more creative and innovative. So we looked at that. So, well, we can stream, but why don't we do edutainment that was missing from the world, where people can go somewhere and be educated. Now, they've had platforms out like that before, high ticket, $500 a month, things of that nature, and getting content like that. So what if we make it really affordable? And what if we also not only create a community, but allow the content creators to create a community, to have their data? And, we've never done it before, so we had to feel our way through it. But we dare to dream and just dare to jump out there. And so far, so good. And, today, people always say, well, you have to get shows where people want to just come and watch all the time. You got to get a hit, and then everybody else benefits. And now we're bringing in shows that we believe that are those hits that everybody can grow from. And the goal is simply this, and I'll shut up after this, is that I wanted to create something where we can build it, have our exit, and the people who helped build it, that were part of the fight, own a piece of it. And that's what it was all about.
Well, and that's amazing. Again, edutainment, that's really the key thing, because there's so much content available to be consumed on TV networks all the time. There's the dramas, documentaries, all these things. But when you can combine the education and entertainment in two things, and that's what I do with my show, with the Rise Above show. Baron James, I interview guests who are tops in their fields and all of the 8 dimensions of life from all over the globe. So
Wow.
the show is audience centric, because audience members can come on and they can learn about whatever dimension of life they may be
Yeah.
looking for growth in, or struggling in, and for me to clarify what the 8 dimensions are, so that people may understand a little bit better. Every single one of us are trying to keep things going and keeping those plates spinning in the 8 different dimensions of life. And that's our physical dimension. So our physical health, our intellectual health, our environmental health. And that's not just ecological. That is our home environment, work environment, school environment, neighborhoods. Then there is our occupational dimension, which is our career, our jobs. Then there is our social dimension, which is our relationships, our emotional dimension, which is our mental health, our spiritual dimension of life, which is our faith, and then our financial dimension. And every single one of us can continue to learn and grow in each of these dimensions, because life happens to us, whether we're ready for it or not. And so we find ourselves needing to learn in one of these areas. And that's why I do my show and interview the guests, because of that reason. And that also had involved into having summits that I used to do on a quarterly basis, that I will be bringing back, because there is so much need. That's the edutainment, right? That's where it all comes from. And I'm proud to have my show and on Limitless TV, and getting the exposure for the people who are really looking for that to grow.
Well, really honored to have you as well. And you're absolutely right. Edutainment to learn in a very fun, engaging way. So you're not sitting there and feeling like you're back in school and you just want to doze off. Now, I do know because my wife's a double scientist, there are those who love that, but most of the population is not baked into their personality trait. And, to make it entertaining and more now than ever, because because United States of America, let's face it, outside of China, we set the trend for everything that happens around the world, and we even impact the reactions in China. But the world is now reshaping, as you would say,
Yeah,
reshaping, retaking, remaking.
that's me.
Yeah, it has, and everybody has to do it. And so many of us are behind the curve because I think the biggest challenge is that we don't know what we don't know. So we operate only in what we know, and then when something new happens, then we're disheveled. So that's what it's all about, and that's why your show is a great value to people. Who I encourage them to watch it because they'll learn some things about something they didn't know. And when you're growing, you're always excitement and happiness is always about moving forward.
Right. And why I got my PhD in entreprenology, Baron James, was that's the study of entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
And me being an entrepreneur for so many years of my life, it really made sense in getting that to having the connection between what I do as a life and mental health coach and crossing that over with entrepreneurial life, right? Because
Yeah.
there's no way that you can keep things separate. Your
Mhm.
business life crosses over into your personal life. Your
Yeah.
personal life crosses over into your business life. And we're all human. And
Mhm.
no matter what, things will happen. Life happens to us whether we're ready for it or not. So
Mhm.
so we need to keep having that evolution of growth. And I help people become engaged in their lives so that they are so I can help empower, educate, and encourage them to move forward in whatever they're trying to reach, the goals and dreams and in their personal or professional lives. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I wanted to share the one segment of my show, and I don't know if you've ever experienced watching it, but so Baron James, I have to ask you, this is the segment, This Grammy Doesn't Knit, She Cliches. So I like to ask my guests coming on, is there a phrase or adage that was used to you as a child and maybe you didn't understand it then
Mhm.
but it stuck with you? Is there
Oh,
something
yeah.
that you heard as a child?
Mhm. Well, I actually have a documentary of my life out, and when I had three sisters, and my mother was a single parent, we had a freezer, a small freezer. I don't know, it must have sat in the dining room, but on it, it had a sign, one of the simple sign, light wood, with a black plaque on it. It simply said, "Think."
Ooh.
That's all it said was think. And even my sisters today, we talk about it because we were very small, like 7, 8, 9 years old, and just think. And we always saw it. So we always were thinking children. And I was the one that was creative. I always tried to find things that could work. And so we were just really taught to think and to care about one another and to never give up and never stop. And I will tell you one thing if I can. This wasn't a phrase, but this was something that really stuck because I remember I was fighting my best friend. And if your boys, maybe even girls, I don't know, but you have a lot of fights with your best friend. And even today, 50, 60 years later, he says he owes me one more fight because I won two and he won one. And both of us have replaced hips. That's going to be interesting. But I remember his name is James Rivers. He was on top. He's just welling away, and I'm blocking it. And then I saw my mother's legs on the top of the steps, and I knew she was going to break the fight up. So I moved my hand so I could take a few blows to get some pity. She never moved. She never ever moved. And she told me that day, and she told me like every 5 years we have this conversation at least, and she's going on now. But she always said how much it hurt her to see me getting beat up, but I had to learn how to fight. And she kind of built us to reference things a different way. It's kind of weird because we don't process things like most people do. Not that we're better, we're just different the way we look at things in life, being raised in the church and perseverance and how we operate when things are really, really tough. So that to think, and then when things go wrong, don't go wrong with it. That's
Mhm. And there's something else I picked up from that story too, is sometimes we need to take that beating so we learn that lesson. You know, we learn that lesson. We got to take that beating so we learn that lesson. We have to go through the tough times to appreciate the good times. You
yeah,
know,
but I don't encourage anybody to go in there and get beat up. Don't throw
not
your fist in your
beat up,
fist.
but I'm saying about how what life does to us,
Yeah,
you know, and that's
yeah,
that's what I do.
I
I
get it.
do this segment of the show because
Mhm,
it really brings out the words that we, you know, the words are what we you know express to our children make a difference.
mhm.
And sometimes again that has stuck with you your whole life. It's been ingrained and become a part of you.
Yeah.
And so then if it's a phrase or adage, I ask people then, you know, how would you continue to promote that along with what you do in today's society? You know, sometimes it's, you know, you might tweak a few words because that's old fashioned saying of something,
Mhm.
but how would you continue to do that? I'm sure you do that with your son, Baron James. I'm sure you do. You encourage him that way.
Oh, absolutely. And but they learn so much from the example. But even on a genetic level, you know, you can see a child that never met a parent and still have some of the tendencies and habits of
True.
that same parent. So it's really kind of genetic as well. I would simply say that with my kids, I allow them the space to learn their lessons for themselves, and then they'll come back and reflect on something I said, and it would come together. So it's like putting a lot of ingredients in a crock pot, stir it from time to time, but it's just keep cooking it until the light goes out. And the light goes out when all these things that are different come together, and then create something brand new that creates an exciting, exciting life. So that, and you know, as a kid, she took us to see Peter Pan. Now, I don't know how my mom did these things working at a grocery store, but I went to see, we go to see plays and ice capades. So I was always a kid that had imagination, and Peter Pan really did it for me because I knew I didn't want to grow up. I knew I wanted to fly. And I knew that I wanted that free spirit. You know, so I've always been disciplined with a work ethic, but I've always had that free spirit, always thinking of something. How can we make this better? And that was just always who I was as a kid, all the way to now.
And that's what I would say. I see very much that you are a visionary, and I love that, and I connect to that so well because for me, the work that I do with my clients, whether it's with one-on-one or with the groups that I work with, I
Mhm.
help people to see things in 5D, having that 5D vision of what's possible instead of just the regular dream board, you know,
Mhm.
where people can put pictures up or whatever. It's all about being able to connect to that why and feeling it, not
Mhm.
just when you have, not just being able to see it, feel it, you know, you have to feel it both physically and emotionally when you
Mhm.
connect to something and keep you going when the times get tough,
Yeah.
because things will happen and things will get difficult, and working with clients that way, it really makes a difference when
Yeah.
they can have that vision.
Yeah. Yeah. I do agree. And then there's just patience, you know. Unfortunately, things don't happen when you want them to happen, but they always happen when they should happen. But I've always learned from me, Dr. Grover, is that you live your life forward. Me, I live my life forward. I understand it backwards. And I want things, you know, I've never been I've learned patience. I've learned patience because I want it now. Need it now.
Don't we all? Don't we
Yeah.
all?
Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, but I've learned to just trust because it always works out, and and go with it because I don't get to change the world or just make things happen. And I remember being younger, I thought I did, but in that comes a little arrogance, or it comes a little even in prayer. You know, a lot of people who, no matter what your religious denomination is, your spiritual studies, some of them they're always going to interlock. even in prayer, the Bible says, don't come praying for the same thing repeatedly like a heathen. It says that. It says, pray as if you've already received it. So I look at the law of expectancy because I never met a winner that didn't expect to win. When you expect to win, you put yourself in preparation for what comes along with that. And when you have that preparation, you invite something to you. You're ready to receive it. And until then, you're just wishing and you want it, and it doesn't. It shows up when it's supposed to show up. That's all I got. It just happens that way.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And it is. It's being in that right mindset. I work with people with mindsets and being vibrationally where they can have things that are going to be drawn to them because of who they are, right? That's who they
Yeah.
operate as. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a journey. Is about becoming who you are. Even I always go back to biblical sayings, but they said a man came to himself. He didn't really become someone else. He came back to his natural state that he had walked away from. And as human beings, I find that happens so often. Even with myself, we go out, we venture, and we think we know what we want and what's right. But then we say, well, there's a higher power that governs my life. Well, no, you want to govern it. You want to be that higher power. And then when you don't get your way, then you go call a higher power. So it's very interesting in the human journey, that we get a chance to grow and laugh at ourselves.
We have to. We have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, it has been wonderful having you as a guest because I'm kicking off season 3 of the show. So I'm
All right.
trying to bring some new technology into things and level up as what I'm doing because I'm having to learn all these new things too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have anything that you would like to give our viewers and listeners as a gift? Because what if you do, what we can do is be able to put it right in the comments for everyone.
Okay.
And
Oh wow, we have a lot of gifts. What do we have? I tell you what we can do. We have some virtual events called Limitless, and as a matter of fact, I was just on the phone this morning about to do a partnership with another great friend who has the Remarkable Conference, and we're going to be doing even more events because they've got a great audience already. So what we can offer for everyone that would text the word Patricia Joe. Nope, I can't say that. Dr. Patricia Joe. There you go. Let's say Dr. Patricia to 26786. If you put that in there, Dr. Patricia, we'll set it up. And everyone who watches your show and comes through you, we'll give them complimentary access to those events and even live events if they happen to be in the Chicagoland area for the general admission. They'll get that just because of you, and nobody else has ever gotten that. So you get to give that to your people.
ooh,
It'll be really
ladies
cool.
and gentlemen, are you hearing this? Are you hearing this? This is amazing. Thank you. Thank you. I hope that everybody takes advantage of this because not only just, myself there or potentially on those stages, but all of the phenomenal individuals that share content at these events. It is
Yeah.
it is a great way to lift yourself up and invest in yourself.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, I would think again, thank you for having me and thank you for all the great work that you do. Continue on. I really encourage people to give it a shot and work with you because if achieving our goals, if we can really have done it by ourselves, we'd be doing it. We can't make a New Year's resolution and keep it past January. So we all need some help with a goal achievement strategist because apparently our strategy is not getting us where we want to go. So I encourage people to invest in it, to spread the word about this great show. And I thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I have some things going out. I've been sharing in social media. I have a special promotion that I'm doing for a Mother's Day,
Wow.
special bliss event for Mother's Day, and that's when I
Wow.
teach people how to believe in themselves, love themselves, identify what's holding them back,
Mhm.
set free what no longer serves them, so they're ready to set course on achieving their biggest,
Wow.
boldest, most bodacious dreams and goals. So
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Well, again, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll go back and make, reply to any comments that were made on here. I know I was sending it to LinkedIn and YouTube for everyone to consume there. So we'll go back and check for comments.
All
Until
right.
next time, rise above the challenges that life bring your way.